Between knowing nothing and knowing everything, there's a zone. That's exactly where we sit. Not experts, just curious about the world. Welcome to the Buffer Zone podcast. I'm your host, Shabazz, and I will be hosting you solo again today in this eighth episode. Yes, before we begin, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll probably notice that I'm wearing a football jersey today. Let's see if anyone can guess which country is this. Now, normally we talk about geopolitics, we talk about power, we talk about strategy and the forces shaping the world behind the scenes. Football isn't the first thing that comes to mind when you think about us. Am I right? But the World Cup is kicking off today. We cannot hide from that reality. I thought this would be the perfect time to explore a question that most football fans never think of. Well, billions of people will be watching the football. Governments around the world will be watching something else. So before we begin, let me know in the comments which country are you supporting and who do you think will win this World Cup? And perhaps more importantly, do you think World Cup is just a sporting event or is something bigger than that? Because that's what we are talking about today. Let's start with something simple. Imagine for a moment that FIFA announces tomorrow that India has won the right to host next FIFA World Cup. How do you think people would react? There'd be celebrations. A few politicians would hold press conferences. Newspaper headlines will be full of this news, right? Social media will be buzzing about this. People will talk about it for weeks. Here's my question. Why? Why would countries get so excited to host a football tournament? I mean, I get it. It's the World Cup. But why do people or host countries celebrate like they won the World Cup? They're simply hosting it. I don't even remember the last time a host country won the World Cup. And yet, countries celebrate like mad. And also, they spend years competing for the opportunity to host a World Cup. They spend billions preparing for it, stadiums, infrastructure, you name it, which suggests that they're gaining something far more valuable than just a football tournament. They're gaining attention. And in today's world, attention is far. Now, before we dive deep, let's quickly cover what's actually happening. This World Cup is historic. For the first time ever, three countries, I repeat, three countries are hosting this tournament together. The United States, Canada, and Mexico. It's also the largest World Cup in history. 48 teams, more than 100 matches, millions of traveling fans, and billions of viewers like me. For football fans, that's exciting enough. More football, more stories, more goals, more drama. But here's where things get interesting. If a tournament was only about football, governments wouldn't care as much, nearly as much, I would say, as they do right now. Think about it. Countries don't spend years lobbying for the right to host a random sporting event. They invest enormous amounts of money, not because they just enjoy football. There's usually another reason, and that reason is influence. This is where we need to talk about something called soft power. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to turn this into a university lecture. This concept is actually very simple. While most people hear the word power, they think of military power. They think about tanks, missiles, aircraft carriers, and the sort. But the ability to force someone to do something is not the only type of power that exists in this world. There's another type of power that works very differently, but some would say more efficiently. That's the ability to attract, the ability to influence, the ability to shape how people see you. Think about Hollywood. Think about Michael Jordan. Think about random T-shirts you see in the streets of India where California, Los Angeles, or New York is written. Why is that? Are they not creating an image of the country or the city of that place in your mind? The desire that you get, oh, I want to visit Los Angeles one day. I want to visit New York one day. I want to visit Paris one day. Think about global brands. They do it all the time. Think about football itself. Most people around the world will never interact with their country's military, but they might watch the films. I might never meet someone from Japan, but I do watch Japanese films. You listen to music. You follow the sport teams and support the country. It has created an influence in my mind. I might visit as a tourist, but slowly over time, your opinions are formed, right? You form opinions. That's soft power. And that's where events like the World Cup matter. For 1 month, the host countries become the center of global attention. People see their cities, their culture, their infrastructure, their way of life. Whether governments admit it or not, that is incredibly valuable. In many ways, hosting a World Cup is one of the largest public relation opportunities a country can get. And that's been true for decades. The names of host countries become part of football history. People remember where iconic moments happened, whether it's Zinedine Zidane headbutting Materazzi in the final of the 2006 World Cup in Germany, whether it's Messi finally lifting the World Cup in Qatar in 2022. People remember that. People remember the countries. People remember the cities. And for governments, that's not a bad thing at all. Now let's take a break from the theory for a minute. because some of the numbers behind the World Cup are mind boggling. Largest World Cup ever organized, 48 national teams, more than 100 matches, dozens of host venues across three different countries, millions of expected visitors, and billions of viewers. Just think about that for a second. Billions. Not many events in the world are capable of attracting that level of attention. Olympics is another big sporting event that can do that. Handful of events, right? And that's about it. Another fascinating thing is the logistics. Fans will cross international borders, teams will travel enormous distances, security agencies from different countries will coordinate with one another, transport systems will be pushed to the limits. And most viewers will never think about any of that. They'll simply switch on their television, watch their football, enjoy their match. And that's exactly the point. If everything works smoothly, nobody notices what's happening behind the scenes. And often that's the mark of a successful operation. Now, let's talk about what's happening right now. As I record this episode, kickoff is almost here. I'm very excited. The teams have arrived, the journalists have arrived, the fans are arriving, the stadiums are ready. And for the next month, North America becomes the center of the football world. But what's interesting is also the timing. Because this tournament arrives during a period of enormous change. 2026 has been a crazy year for geopolitics. Across the world, countries are becoming increasingly focused on their own interests. Debates about borders, immigration, trade, national identity. These conversations are happening almost everywhere. And yet, here we have three countries working together to host one of the largest events in human history: the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Three countries, three governments, three political systems, different priorities, different domestic challenges. But here we are. They all share one simple responsibility, maybe not so simple responsibility, to host the world. And whether people realize it or not, that's a fascinating geopolitical story. Because while football grabs the headlines, another story is unfolding in the background. The host nations themselves are being evaluated. People are watching the organization, the atmosphere, the transport system, the experience, the image being projected to the rest of the world. Because if millions of fans are coming in to watch, they will go back to their countries and talk highly or lowly, depending on how their experience was at the host nations. Think about that, how much of an impact that has on the reputation of the host. And that matters because perception matters. And sometimes more than we realize. So, what happens after the final whistle? Well, somebody wins the World Cup. Duh. That's the easy prediction, right? What I'm talking about concerns everything beyond football. I think events like the World Cup are only going to become more important in the coming years. Not because governments are suddenly obsessed with the sport. Make no mistake about that. They're not. But because attention itself is becoming more valuable day by day. Think about how crowded the modern world has become. Every country wants attention, every company wants attention, every politician wants attention, and everyone's vying for visibility, right? And very few events can generate that global attention like the FIFA World Cup, which means future tournaments may be remembered for more than football. They may be remembered as opportunities. Opportunities for countries to tell their story, to improve their image, to attract visitors and to attract investment and to project influence, not through force, but through visibility. So, what are we really looking at here? The biggest football tournament in history or one of the biggest displays of soft power we've ever seen? Maybe it's both. Because the strange thing about the modern world is that influence doesn't always come with armies or trade agreements or military alliances. Sometimes it can come from culture, sometimes it can come from entertainment, and sometimes it comes from football. And that's where the soft power comes in. This time, it's coming to your television sets through football. So when you watch the FIFA World Cup, do think about soft power and do think about the images and the experiences that fans must be carrying home with them after they're done with the World Cup. And before I go, I genuinely want to hear your thoughts. Who are you supporting in this World Cup? Who do you think lifts the trophy? And do you think events like this are just about the sport, or do they tell us something deeper about how power works in this modern world? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading them. And yes, guys, thank you for holding on till the end. This is Germany, one of the nations I really, really support. And Netherlands and England are the other two nations that I love. Amateurs seek the sun, get eaten. Real power lies in the shadows. This is the Buffer Zone. See you next week.